Do you sometimes think to yourself, I barely did a thing and my spouse came unglued? Why is it that I do such a little thing and I get such a big overreaction from my spouse? Well, today you're going to learn exactly one very common reason why that happens and what you can do about it. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Emily Booth. I am a marriage therapist associate in Oregon. On this channel, I help couples online who face the exact same challenges that I see every single day in my private practice. So let's get into it. What is an overreaction? Well, you might roll your eyes, you might say something or grunt or be a little bit unkind, and then your spouse takes it and runs with it. They make a mountain out of a molehill. Their reaction is totally out of proportion, disproportionate to the offense. And now that thing that you were annoyed about, that you showed some dismay over, totally goes by the wayside, and the entire focus is on what you've just done to insult your partner. And there are a few parts to this, so let's see if we can kind of tease out some of it and disentangle it a little bit. First, we want to look at why the overreaction is occurring. In the Gottman method of couple therapy, we call this negative sentiment override. It's when your relationship essentially has been overridden by negativity. It is the opposite of rose-colored glasses. So let's take rose-colored glasses as an example. You've just met your spouse, maybe you're dating, and you see each other and you see all the things that they do in this very positive light. Anything they do is met with humor on your part. Anything that a subjective bystander might see as sort of dumb or irritating, you think is funny and hilarious. And that's because during this very beginning phase of the relationship, you have what's called positive sentiment override based on an incredible amount of happy hormones that are rushing through you. But over time, those hormones kind of diminish, and we start to have stories possibly build up in our mind, negative stories about the other person. And possibly your partner has these negative stories about you, which is why the negative reaction occurs to something relatively small. Let's look at an example. You're driving down the road and your spouse is in the passenger seat and you see an accident. You're approaching it and you end up slowing down to look at it. Your partner, if they're in positive sentiment override, might say or think to themselves, wow, you really care about people. Granted, it's not that safe to slow down, but you really seem to care about the possible pain that that person is going through in that moment. And that's what we call positive sentiment override. In negative sentiment override, it's the exact opposite. Now your partner sees it with anger because it reinforces a belief, an important belief about you, about your partner, about the relationship, or something else equally important. So let's take this car accident example. In negative sentiment override, your partner is not thinking about how caring you are. They're believing something negative about you. Maybe, wow, you really don't care that we're going to be late again, do you? And you know how important this is to me that we are on time. Or you just can't stop putting your nose in other people's business, can you? Or can you be a safe driver for once? When you or your partner are in negative sentiment override, the option is to turn away or turn against. Either way, that response is disconnecting. Turning away would look something like staring out the window and kind of ruminating on irritating thoughts about your spouse. Turning against would be saying those thoughts that you're thinking and criticizing you. But they're not sharing the underlying thoughts and beliefs. They're using criticism in their mind and in their words. Now you have this reaction that's an overreaction, what a neutral third party would see as a somewhat minor offense. You might think, golly, I just slowed down next to the accident. Granted, it's not safe, but it feels so undeserved. Like this irritation coming at me, it just feels really unfair. And that's because there is an element of judgment based on the negativity that your partner believes about you in that moment. This is where you get the overreaction to a somewhat minor offense. It may be that your partner sees those actions as not caring about their needs. Wow, my partner really doesn't care. I knew it. I'm trying to be on time. They just don't care about me trying to be on time. They don't care about me. Or if they're condemning you for being too nosy, maybe the underlying need for them is more autonomy and trust from you in the relationship. A subjective bystander wouldn't be thinking those things. They wouldn't have been thinking, having those beliefs that are going on in your spouse's reaction. Your spouse is thinking them based on possibly years of telling themselves a certain story about you. Gone are the days of rose-colored glasses. Now they're dingy and gray and foggy, and they distort your actions to being much worse than they actually are. And by the way, I must say this, when one of my clients is in negative sentiment override, most of the time, the other partner is also. So it's not something to label your partner with or criticize your partner for. It's something to simply notice. Oh, wow, that's what's happening between us. Most likely, you're in negative sentiment override too. The reason for this is that if your spouse responds negatively to you, it is very, very, very challenging, and I could say nearly impossible to remain neutral with them over the long haul. So it's something that happens this way. So over the course of my channel, I'll be focusing on this negativity within the relationship and how it relates to you and your partner. It takes a long time actually to heal from it, but there is hope and you can heal from it. It is not a death sentence to your marriage. I would say if you don't deal with it though, it is so toxic that it could very well be a death sentence to the marriage. But that's only if you don't do something about it. The reason why it's so difficult is because there are a lot of different elements at play. You both have beliefs about each other, and it takes time to intentionally unravel all of those. Okay, let's take another example. The car accident example wasn't really aimed at your partner. Your partner, we could say, was more like in the periphery of that scenario, and then they reacted. Now, let's look at an example, maybe more common, with not you, other people, like me during my marriage. Let's look at an example where now you've done something to show that you're angry. Perhaps it's met with your partner's overreaction here. Let's say you split dinner duties and it's your spouse's night to make dinner, and you're frustrated because now your spouse has chosen to go get food out when both of you know you're trying to save money. You see the takeout on the table and maybe do a slight eye roll because you're irritated at this. Your partner turns this into World War III. Now what? Well, both of these examples are similar because your partner overreacted in both examples, but they do differ because in the car example, your partner was criticizing you for your actions that really had nothing to do with them. Or if, granted, maybe they were late, but it was very periphery for them. In the second example, your partner was criticizing you in a defensive posture based on your actions toward them that might have relayed judgment or disapproval in some way. So it's really important to notice that nuance, that difference. But regardless, here's one thing you can do about it in the midst of either of these particular situations. Your job is to see the fray for what it is. You're wrestling in the mud, you're wrestling in the fray. Try to rise above to take a 40,000-foot view, to see the scenario for what it is, an expression that something is going wrong in your relationship. And as I mentioned earlier, negative sentiment override is toxic to the relationship, and it tends to reinforce itself, so it gets worse over time until eventually the relationship disintegrates. But like I said, that doesn't have to happen to you and to your relationship. Here's what you can do. Act like a neutral third party, like a reporter. You're showing up to the scene of a crime, to the scene of whatever, and you are a reporter just stating the facts. You're trying to gather information without condemning the subject. You're someone who cares about understanding this person and really trying to get to know them. And you bring that sense of curiosity with you because there is some belief, something hidden under that reaction that caused it to be much stronger, maybe more aggressive than a neutral third party would have seen it. So regardless of the example, take either example. Ask if you can revisit the event after you've both cooled down. You could say something along the lines of, "Hey, honey, could we talk about what happened in the car on the way to the event last night?" And then if your partner says yes, "I was so startled when I heard yelling when we were passing by this accident, and I'm wondering if we could discuss why it bothered you so much. Could we do it without criticizing each other? I promise not to criticize you. Would that be okay?" Now here's a side note. Some of my couples that I see, and some of you may be in the same boat, you're actually not able to have that conversation without criticism and without contempt. And so if you're down this path of negativity far enough where you can't have a conversation without criticism and contempt, then that is an urgent time to get into marriage counseling if you possibly can. So now you're expressing curiosity for them. What is going on for them? They may say something like, "Yeah, you don't care. You don't care about my time. You just went slow on purpose." So they responded with criticism even though they said they wouldn't. But if you can look at it as a reporter and let it go for the sake of curiosity, that's very helpful. If not, you can ask can they just share their feelings without putting you down? If your partner can't stop criticizing you and you react with anger at the criticism, you're stuck. And that's when you need to bring in that marriage therapist. But if you can hold your offense, or if your partner can actually choose not to criticize, you might say, again, as if you're a reporter, "So, slowing down last night when I did that caused you to remember all those times that we were late. And I took you right back to that storyline." Yeah. Wow. I'm so thankful you shared that with me. I can see how you could link that. I've been working on not being late, but I can see there maybe is still some work to do, and I can see how you would link that together. I'm sorry for that. I've been working on it, but I can understand where you're coming from. Or say we're in the eye roll situation with your partner getting takeout. Yeah, you know what? I know you don't like it when I share my irritation with eye rolling. I know you prefer, and it's probably more mature if I share my irritation with you just in a straightforward way. Take some responsibility for what you can, for what is true for you. If you've caused your partner to be late before, acknowledge it. Not a big deal. Acknowledge what you can acknowledge and what is true, and provide some empathy. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. That small act of hearing your partner, even though they didn't express it in the right way, it's not edifying or life-giving by any means. Just giving your partner that small space to share it with you is a powerful approach. Now, from curiosity, you've gotten an inside glimpse into your partner. And many times we think, "Oh, our partner won't share with us." But this is a way to hear what they have to say. Now you have a chance to share your feelings. When I rolled my eyes, I was feeling frustrated and scared about our finances. I'm afraid that maybe we won't be able to save up enough money for our upcoming vacation. And so it was really out of fear. It's essential to have a conversation that allows you to share your feelings and also validate what your partner might be feeling. Click the link in the description, because in that link I provide a full outline of how to have this conversation. It's a download. It'll make it really easy to kind of facilitate this conversation. Okay, so now what? This conversation isn't necessarily going to stop the negative sentiment. There are many things that go into this, lots of little puzzle pieces that you put together to work through the negativity. And if you can, like I mentioned, get into marriage therapy. If you see that this negative sentiment is sort of taking hold of your relationship, then it's especially important to do that. But at the least, in this scenario, when you have this one moment, this one thing is not allowed to cause a deeper rift between the two of you. You're not allowing this particular scenario to have additional negativity because of this argument. You're kind of stopping it. You're buffering the negativity from getting worse. You're making a slight shift toward improving, just a tiny, tiny shift, but it is a shift. And you're starting to create a habit, hopefully making sure that the little things that are happening are getting resolved. You're allowing curiosity and some empathy to infiltrate your relationship, and hopefully receiving empathy also from your partner when you share. So it kind of like just one small piece of the puzzle. This is going to be a big topic on my channel, to make sure that folks understand how to start slowly making their way out of this kind of negativity spiral. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this sort of content, click here for more videos, and in the description, check out that download to help facilitate those conversations. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.